is that how little people care is something that's one of the things with the cannabis legalization news this week. How did the week treat you?
It's been good. How was your 420?
Oh man, that was not bad. I was kind of overworked, so I did a lot of crap on 420. I made like two videos. I just put one out. It was about a summary of like the 8 laws that are currently in Congress about cannabis legalization. There's probably more than those 8 laws. I'm not sure exactly how many laws there are in Congress right now on cannabis, but it's a few. And so those were like the 8 ones that I summarized, and check that out. A lot of people are watching that, so I did that. I also then threw some axes. I didn't. I have a busted rotator cuff, so
Oh,
I watched people throw axes at a bar
at a bar with beer.
with beer. Yeah, it's Illinois. Even once they have an adult use bill, which still has not been introduced into the House, so I don't know what it looks like. Even then, from what I've heard, the senator talking about what she proposes, there will not be any cannabis bars, especially ones that you can throw axes at, in 2020 or in the foreseeable future of Illinois. However, there are bars all over the United States where you can drink beer and throw axes. So, not really sure what we're trying to protect.
That is so fucking crazy, man. Oh my
Yep,
god.
but axe throwing is popular these days. Axe throwing is very, very popular.
Well, too much
Anyway,
a little person throwing.
little personal throwing.
Yeah, word tossing.
Oh yeah, word tossing, man. I did some word tossing today. It was all right. It's due process kind of Wednesday, and so man, how's stuff going out in Seattle area? Things are starting to get a little nuts over in Illinois as the crop gets closer and closer. Things just get more and more active.
Oh yeah. I mean, here it's still the bills that I talked about last week. The main one that I'm hoping passes is 5234, which will it'll create more opportunity for proper legalization of patients.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers markets addresses that kind of environment. Things that
Can you
exist.
buy cannabis at a farmer's market then?
So before, when it was just medical, we were able to do that, and we have a couple
You could
still.
buy cannabis at a farmer's market when it was medical in Washington State.
Yeah, it was just a cannabis farmers market. It was pretty awesome.
That is nuts. That is nuts. I can't believe like you could go to the farmer's market and be like, "Oh, honey, how's the cannabis? Oh, we're out. We're out. You got to go get that stuff." I mean, that
Oh
would
my!
have been crazy.
It was awesome, and the nice thing about those markets at the time was you can consume it on premises, so you could sample the product.
You could go to the farmer's market, get your cannabis, and then consume it on site.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Wait, didn't like hippies and like Hitler come back and like ruin everything for America, and people were like dying in the street and terrible, terrible un-American things happened?
Well, what happened is people who saw everybody else get rich, and then that's where our recreational law came about, because all this stuff was going on when it was medical.
Wait, wait. So your adult use laws over in Washington State came about because people weren't getting rich enough off of cannabis.
I believe so because that was a big argument. Hey, it's not fair because you have a medical certificate. I should be able to smoke my weed too, and I should be able to buy the store without saying that I'm sick or injured. But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's a point to it. But the fact is, we had that kind of environment for about 10 years, and there were no, there was no zombie apocalypse. There was no
Well, it's
planes
only because it
crashing.
was in Washington State. I mean, had this very strange hippie liberal conspiracy that is cannabis for sale and for consumption at farmers markets right there, the Republicans, they can just kiss Texas goodbye with that one.
Oh, it was an amazing, and so yeah, we regressed with our law, but we're getting there.
Well, a lot of other places are really only improving their law. There was I didn't see a lot of legislative news come out that really raised my eyebrows over the past weekend. But of course, it was Easter weekend and it was also 420, so I'm sure that the legislature was kind of busy. There was a pretty interesting couple of studies on drugged driving, which is a little misnomer. We shouldn't call it drug driving. We should call it uh, driving with cannabis. What would you describe it as?
I mean, it's driving under the influence is really the only thing you can really kind of say because I mean, even driving high, when someone requires a high amount of medication, they can still function. I've seen people in
Driving while medicated. Driving while medicated.
yeah.
All right. So there was a study, two studies from driving while medicated. Has not one came out of Canada. Marijuana legalization hasn't led to many more impaired driving charges, say the police. So that's out of Vancouver. And then, of course, that study is just observational. But when you have an entire country that has entirely legalized something and not more impaired driving charges, maybe driving while medicated is not as bad as some people make it out to believe. And then that was corroborated by this is a good. I'll drop this one down in the description section of the video. It's a weedmaps article that came out of today, and it says like a Kansas researcher found that legalized marijuana did not result in an uptick of fatalities. So
Well, there was one
there's
from
that.
Michigan as well.
Oh yeah, you're right. Another one did come out of Michigan. So now we have 3 data points out of 3 separate locations. That's officially a trend.
Yeah, like I said, for 10 years we've had this world where I was able to consume after work, and nobody fucking knew about it, or no one cared about it. There was no
People
outcry.
knew. They knew where to go. If they
Yeah,
wanted to go, they could find it.
yeah, but there was no
Yeah.
outcry of like all these like uh, increased homelessness or increased psychosis issues. There's none of this shit. It's just
Wait, people didn't go like all crazy and stuff?
right. I mean, there wasn't the 21 days later type syndrome.
That did you see that? That was actually one of the cooler things of marijuana legalization news from the past week was that new Netflix special. Did you check that one out?
Oh, and we got a little shout out onto the Netflix. Did you watch it?
Yeah, man, the Netflix special was like great. It was the entire back history. It's a wonderful documentary of the purely subjective racist law that is marijuana prohibition.
I learned a lot from it, from the terminology of the jazz days, and
I knew a lot of like the Reefer Man and Muggles, but I didn't know that jive also meant cannabis.
exactly same here, and also the references to the drug dealer, like in the Method Man songs.
The Method Man song, I thought it was the Reefer Man song. That was that Cab Calloway one from like the early 30s, back when nobody knew what it was. And I also did not know the extent that Louis Armstrong really consumed cannabis. Like that was his religion almost. It was pretty amazing.
He was ahead of his time. Hey, we got a question.
What's that?
651 says, "How do y'all feel about Louisiana's terrible medical marijuana laws and the changing views among Republicans when it comes to weed? I'm a 19-year-old Republican and I love smoking."
Well, if you're a 19-year-old yes, if you're a 19-year-old Republican that loves smoking, I'm not really sure how you're a 19-year-old Republican. Those two things are like diametrically opposed in my brain, and I'm not really sure how it goes. Of course, maybe you're just a freedom-loving American and you don't want anybody telling you what to do. The problem with that is that these draconian cannabis laws that are in more conservative states, they see people that use the cannabis as like an actual problem. And that problem was like, I think it was called The Grass is Greener. Is that the name of the Netflix special?
Yeah, I put the link in the comments.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like the first time I ever saw Johnny Green. Johnny, like, I was like, oh my gosh, that guy is prolific. He's even on the Netflix special. Yeah.
No, the whole Republican bullshit. I don't. I think we tend to like make it a left or right issue when there's really just like, what about an American? We're all together. We want to go forward as a country issue.
Yeah, that's bad for entrenched people that already have money and power. They don't really want change, and the change is going to be bad for them because they are, making their money from the system as it is currently set up. So, do you think private prisons and tobacco companies and alcohol companies and police unions and who else, pharmaceutical companies, do you think they really want legalized cannabis, or do they want the last 80 years to continue?
Well, if you think about it, I mean, originally it started off with just a suppression of minorities. As people evolved with money, then it becomes like you're saying, the money people who are even minorities themselves are like, I don't want to tap into my check. We're such an unbalanced a system of checks and balances now, where with this one law that was created to fuck one people, now it's just fucking everybody.
Yeah, and it's terrible in the sense that I thought they did a great job, and if you haven't checked it out, go watch The Grass is Greener. It's a wonderful historical documentary as to exactly why this law is, unconstitutional, because it is so racist and because it is so crazy. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I thought they did a great job of explaining it all. I just can't believe that the whole point of the law is to make sure that the people that they are scared of, and by they, I mean like the Rothschilds, the Gettys, the five people, like from that Mike Myers thing where they, So I Married an Axe Murderer, where he was like, he has this conspiracy theory over the top five families that run the world. And, those people don't want to give up any control, and there's be the top five families that run America. The Fords, the Hearsts. The Hearsts, actually, that's kind of some of the rumor of the history as well, was that Hearst wanted his newspaper businesses to not be threatened by hemp. And so a lot of the origins of the marijuana laws had to do with all this yellow journalism that was going on, I think, through mostly Hearst papers. And then they would use the journalists, they would get not Sala Lanslinger, Harry J. Anslinger would then take the newspapers to Congress and be like, look at this. Look at how dangerous this is. Why it was printed in the paper. It must be true.
Yeah, and just like in a documentary, how they were talking about the, they just took sections of the highlighted articles, man smokes weed and kills his family of five, and they don't mention the psychosis that he had beforehand, or, the tendency, there's so many other factors. Weed's not the issue that's fucking bringing us down,
Well, again, it's just that people are scared, and people were scared, and they exploited that fear, and then they were able to. I mean, what happens if cannabis does reduce people's anxiety and their fears and all these other things? They could all of a sudden not want to do all the things that Madison Avenue needs you to do, so they can beat on the top and the bottom line over at Wall Street. But speaking of some other like really crazy news that I saw, you actually passed me along one of these articles. This one was out of Michigan that you gave me. This one that I got from another person, reached out from Arizona. Have you heard about the hemp farmers being concerned with the marijuana farmers because of cross-pollination?
Yeah, that's the same thing that we have up here in Washington.
So do you guys have both hemp and well, they're both cannabis, hemp and marijuana being grown in Washington outdoors?
So yeah, on the east side there is and that's the issue. I'm over here in Seattle side. It's always cold for the most part. So there's a lot of the Northwest was advanced when it came to hydroponics back in the day. The Northwest was always ahead as far because of indoor growing. They needed to grow.
Yeah, I thought the indoor growing, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, the indoor growing was a byproduct of the crackdown by law enforcement officers, because you had to grow it in a way that is not going to be detected, and you're also trying to grow it to maximize your yields because you sell it by weight. So that's why I thought a lot of the growers shied away from the genetics that were more along the sativa strains, and then more toward the squat fatty indica strains that would make a fairly heavy, dense, sticky bud.
Well, from my perspective, it's been, the Californian people will grow outside, but because your best grow is going to be outside with the sun-rich plant. But and then that's how I've seen the evolution has been in California, or regions that are always sunny. They do grow outside as much as possible. I mean, there are ways to make your plant blend in with your garden. But at the same token, the Northwest, limited sunlight, limited good weather when it comes to growing. Like right now, if I didn't plant outside, I'm fucked.
Right now, if you didn't plant outside, you're screwed?
Well, actually, I should have planted last month.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's still really kind of spring's finally getting here to the central Illinois area. You can always tell when morale season kind of swoops through. And farmers might be getting the fields ready, but I haven't really seen any in the fields actually planting. So hopefully, and I think what it's going to be, I checked again today, Illinois is still not open for business when it comes to industrial hemp. I think it's going to be on April 30th. And then I was reading another article about the Illinois adult use bill. I think that one will also be published on April 30th, but I'm not 100% on it. However, going back to this issue that you said that you have on the eastern side of the state, you have outdoor grows that have also with outdoor hemp. So you have both types of cannabis, hemp and marijuana. And is a cross-pollination an issue in the eastern part of Washington state as much as this article about Arizona hemp farmers being concerned, or the one that I saw about Michigan hemp farmers being concerned?
I'm sure it's going to be an issue. We haven't had any hemp planting yet, as far as I know, in Washington state. And I believe 2 years ago, they were trying to address this issue before the law came into place. They were trying to factor in zones, like how far away from each other should they be? You know, are they going to implement rules about the wind? Because I mean, that's where you get your pollination from. So I don't know how they actually address the issue. I just know it is an issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know how it's going to turn out either. I know in Illinois it's illegal to grow marijuana outside, and so all the marijuana, the medical marijuana grown in Illinois, is grown indoors, hydroponically, and you have HVAC systems that screen for pollen, and they're really worried about it. So I think that when you're outside, though, those pollens, they can travel for what, miles? Is that just a rumor, or is that like real?
No, that's true. And speaking from a guy from allergies, I'm constantly getting fucked in my nose. But we got two questions though.
Allergy jokes. All right,
Yeah,
what's the questions?
yeah, knock a cent. Engineering Cannabis asks, in the cannabis infusion with alcohol, will that result in more restrictive laws in DUI or DWI laws specifically for infused products?
Well, the answer to that question does require us to guess. Anything where you're going to try to like predict the future and what type of laws will come up. However, you can try the best you can to make an educated guess. And so, in the future, at least when it comes to DUIs, if I was a practicing DUI attorney, I would be trying to expand my practice area simply because this hypothesis. What happens if in 10 years the cars are all driving themselves and DUIs, traffic fatalities, they just drop off a cliff and they go from hundreds of thousands a year to dozens, something like that. And if I was also a personal injury lawyer, I would be diversifying simply because the same thing. How did somebody get injured if the cars aren't crashing into each other no more? And that, irrespective of what type of concoctions, which right now, by the way, are able to be done because there is no regulation. So there's nothing to protect you from not going out there drinking whiskey until you're blind while doing any number of illicit substances and then being behind a wheel. And I'm not sure, because I don't practice criminal law, if that did happen, if they're able to stack various offenses on top of one another. And that might be something that would happen in the future if there is some type of blending of THC or CBD and alcohol. It's just that it's too speculative. And the real thing I'd be worried about if I was a DUI or a personal injury lawyer is robot cars, especially I think Tesla. Oh my gosh, have you seen that Uber ad?
No.
Oh man, you haven't seen like the Uber fleet ad, the Uber for like trucks? Have you seen that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm getting like on social media, I see ads for like Uber fleet. And then Tesla was just sending out like, auto taxis. They were just doing a press release and a little, you shouldn't call it a dog and pony show, but one of those things where you're trying to get press for your own stuff. They were just doing some type of junket for whatever they have going on, because their software, those cars are already driving themselves. They're on the road right now.
Yeah. No, I think, well, with the DUI thing too, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like most of the laws are written, they're assuming that you're smoking it. They're not in accounting for edibles.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, most people commonly associate it with smoking. They do.
Yeah. So I think they're the under the influence topic. it's still something that shouldn't be policed. I mean, that's gonna be a hard one to say this is the cause and effect. And I don't know why people are so focused on having a cause and effect, But so we got the other question though too, from Big Pat Man. He says he's a medical marijuana patient in Pennsylvania. We're not allowed to grow our own, yet is it illegal to buy seeds? So I don't know what
Oh,
the I don't know
yeah,
what
I
to
bet
say.
it is. I bet it's illegal to buy seeds. That would not surprise me. It might be legal to buy hemp seeds, but it might be illegal to buy cannabis seeds that, especially if they're like feminized, like the strain specific one. That would not surprise me. I mean, it's same in Illinois. You can have your medical card, but it's still not lawful to actually cultivate your own medicine. Um, there was a good poll that was released on 420 by CBS News regarding marijuana legalization. It's now up to 65% of Americans think marijuana should be legal, but 56% say they wouldn't sway their vote on a candidate across party lines, which again, it's important, but it's just not all that important
Well,
to the America.
in Pennsylvania, though, is kind of a scary state too, because that's the place where Tommy Chong got busted, for selling bongs. Because
Yeah,
of the
but that
because
was
of
in
the,
2003. I mean, the laws are slow to change. The laws in 2003 that got him may still be there, but I thought that was a federal one and had to do something with crossing state lines. But I apologize. What were you saying about Pennsylvania's marijuana
Oh
laws?
no, I was just gonna say because I always tend to like see how the powers that be, implement the rules. Because
Hmm.
Tommy Chung got busted because it did cross the state line, but it had to be that state in particular because of a law that was written in the state. Because they were doing other state services, and until they got to the sting for that one state. But on the seed note, though, just to let them know that you can buy seeds through the mail. Some of those ones in the back of the High Times magazines uh, are legit seed sellers. And I'm actually going to post an Instagram there. Mother's Finest Organics. You can DM them too and get seeds. The seeds issue, because it doesn't have THC, they're still able to transport them. They're still being sold. I just always think it's a question of who you're buying them from.
Well, yeah, that's going to be really, really important. But as well, my recommendation is sometimes just don't push your luck. Be really careful, and then again, don't try to like ask that type of advice on a feed of a show. Just but yeah, like you said, be careful, trust who you're going to have, and all that, and it's one heck of a world, isn't it? I still remember like seeds have been available for sale, and you could buy them in Europe back. I haven't looked in at least 10 years, but it's something that you can do whatever you want, man. Just watch out there. Hey, have you heard that Mitch McConnell says that hemp could replace tobacco and argues that's why voters should reelect him? That is really cool about Mitch McConnell. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but he has been very, very good for hemp.
Well, he uses the a little image of hemp in his little promo video. If you saw that yet.
I haven't. I haven't. That's great though. I'm glad that he is so into. I mean, that's such a strange thing because like hemp, a lot of hemp is you approve the cannabis plant. I haven't met anybody who's like pro hemp but anti marijuana legalization.
Well, I think it's just them wrapping their heads around the lies that they've been taught and even reinforcing themselves. You know,
Yeah.
uh, one of the funny, not funny, but because you're talking about the money behind prohibition, and in an article here in the Stranger, our local rag, they had a
Oh, you have a
nice
local
little
rag.
yeah, they have a nice little write up about the behind the story, the untold story of marijuana legalization, and it talks about how Nadelman, Ethan Nadelman,
Oh yeah, he's the Students for Sensible Drug Policy. Is he SSDP or is he another one of them?
I believe he's
Yeah, Nathan
Drug
Edelman,
Policy
like
Alliance.
okay, DPA or DPC. Yeah,
Yeah,
there
but
are more than
it
one
talks
of
about how
these liberalization alliances, nonprofits in the country. There's a few.
Oh, there's a shit ton. It depends on what they do. Is who I try and support, But
Mhm.
he collected. Actually, he got billionaires to help fund the DPA.
Oh, if you're going to get somebody to help you with funding, it is important that you search out for billionaires because they have a lot of money.
Yeah, but that helped come about with Prop 215, and just different little aspects of state funding.
Mhm.
I just thought it was an interesting read. It's in the. I posted it in the comments. Uh,
Cool. All
then,
right, man. More good old fashioned marijuana legalization news. Alabama lawmakers approved medical marijuana bill, but if you look into it, where they are in the Alabama medical marijuana progress, they are still in a committee. So, an Alabama Senate Judiciary Committee passed the Alabama medical marijuana bill. Now it will go to the full Senate. So, I mean, all these stages of where marijuana legalization is. Alabama is definitely towards the beginning, but
yeah,
it's an important step, and it looks like they are moving forward. And so hopefully one day Alabama will join the ranks of all these other states that still are doing just fine. Some states actually had cannabis at farmers markets where they would publicly consume it, and they are still just fine. But it's this thing takes so flipping long. That's Go watch that Netflix documentary because that thing was awesome. And then you see that it's been going on for 80 or 90 years. It's not going to stop on a dime.
yeah. That's the most disheartening part when if you actively try and do advocacy work and show up to like these bills that I mentioned before to get a fucking bill passed, and then to coordinate all your states to individually do that same thing at the same time, to have people have enough balls just to will and the time. That's the important part.
And the time that is a real commitment. I mean, you're going to try to make a change to a system that has been in place for 80 years. That's ballsy, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And not just that. Some of these people are lifelong manipulators of politics. They understand the ins and outs, the paperwork that needs to get fucking like McConnell and his able to stop so many different proceedings.
Yeah,
They're able.
he understands sanitary. He understands parliamentary, and then the word senate. You smash them together, you get sedentary. It's also where you sit too much. That's
Yeah,
sedentary procedure. But yeah, he understands the procedures that are in play in the Senate. Absolutely. But I'm glad that, and when it comes to his core, why he's supporting hemp so much, it's because he is trying to help his state, and his state isn't the richest state in the world, but and also it was a tobacco state. So by providing an alternative crop for tobacco farmers, that may in and of itself have hastened marijuana legalization, because I think that hemp, even more people support legalization because they're like, wait, it's the same plant? It's basically the same plant.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When you realize that the different textiles and whatnot that can come from it, not just the fact that you can have a good night with it.
Yeah, well, there's that, and then there's also the plastics. I think are going to be huge. I think for its ability to produce cellulose will be big, but I am not a natural fiber welder. I don't have any intention to ever become one either.
Well, they even have hemp for 3D printing.
Like I said, it doesn't surprise me. It's a very versatile crop, and we'll see what it becomes over time. But for right now, I believe the thing that's really driving the hemp expansion is the CBD hemp. But as the facilities to process it come online more and more over the next few years, now the pilot program is over. And so, the hemp industry in 5 to 10 years will almost be as unrecognizable as the adult use marijuana industry might be. We have no idea what they're going to come up with.
Well, it's funny. Are you familiar with Sam?
Students for Effective Marijuana, no, Smart Approach to Marijuana. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah, yeah. And then they actually it's a deceiving name because they're actually anti-legalization, right? They think,
Right. It's Pat
well,
Kennedy's nonprofits. And so, like, for the nonprofits like Ethan Edelman's nonprofit or Normal or MPP, then you have like Sam over there doing the exact opposite thing, which just makes changing the law more hard.
and Sam's also funded by the goddamn DEA, which is sad. I mean, they're part funded. But
Yeah, I don't like that aspect. That's terrible.
it's an unfair game. But the thing is, one of their arguments is, and I think what with the conversation they keep advocates divided by saying things like, we don't want corporate weed. They're like, we fight corporate weed. But you're telling me you're fighting Americans who are good business people?
Right. Fight corporate weed. Why? Because you think that the drug cartel is just a whole bunch of, mom and pop operators? It's seriously. I mean, there's corporate weed, whether or not it's taxed or whether or not it's black market.
Well, and like in the comments right now, Big Pat Man, he's talked about a Marlboro's pre-roll, question mark, Budweiser infused drinks, question mark, Newport pre-rolls, question mark, the future. And actually the Budweiser one is already here. One of the Budweiser, one of the fucking things they own in California is making CBD infused flavor drinks.
Yeah, I saw that the CBD infused flavor drinks are coming, and then there's another YouTuber who does product reviews for hemp, for smokable hemp flower. That's how I found CBD Technologies, and I ordered some hemp flower from them. And his most recent product review, he was doing smokable hemp, and it came in a thing that looked like a pack of cigarettes. You open it up, they look like a pack of cigarettes, but they weren't cigarettes.
Well, and I know that they deliver that in the UK. They actually deliver that hemp in the flower.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a delivery service there. But the whole corporate weed thing, I kind of embrace it just because corporate people don't want to go to jail. Corporate people help change.
Corporate people have their own jails. Like corporate people don't go to jail. Corporate people go to like minimum security country clubs.
But I'm just saying the corporate people are going to work on some laws and funnel that money for changing the legislation or whatever need to be done.
NBD, no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah. The TLDR version of the cannabis laws they're fucked.
Yeah. I mean, presently, just because just even the CBD fucking shit that we're going through with different states pulling over products going through, or
yeah, that's I recorded too. That was another one of them, and that one's coming out. They aren't supposed to be pulling over those cars. The Farm Bill is very clear on that. There's direction for interstate commerce that's written into the Farm Bill that says, hey, supremacy clause, it's federally legal everywhere, and you are not to stop our hemp in Nebraska, Idaho, Iowa, any other state that doesn't. Texas doesn't. I'm pretty sure Texas does not yet have anything. There might be bills that are working through its legislature, but it doesn't have anything that's enforced. But yeah, the interstate commerce provision of the 2018 Farm Bill, found on page 435 of the Farm Bill, by the way, does provide that you are not to impede the interstate commerce of this lawful new agricultural commodity.
Let's see. And so, like, Papa.
I just thought that maybe you had something up on that aspect to it.
Oh no, the legalization news for cannabis, it's a spectrum, right? You got everything from policies and things happening as far as like products from companies that are getting stopped and people being pulled over to actual just individual people being arrested for their medicine. There's people in Idaho right now. Mm-hmm. That's mostly where I get my street cred from, is from helping people. There's a person in jail right now his name's Craig Cecil. This guy's he's serving a 30-year to life sentence for conspiracy of cannabis. And there's a Facebook post that I'll be sharing here in the comments, but he reaches out to a lot of people on the outside, giving us like, hey, can you help me out here? Because cops are beating these people. He is presently in Terre Haute, Louisiana, which is like one of the worst federal prisons.
Terre Haute. Oh, wait.
Yep.
Terre Haute or Terre Haute? Because like Terre Haute's in Indiana. You said Terre Haute, Louisiana? There could be one. I don't know.
H-E-U-T-E?
Yeah.
Let's see. Where is he at? So I posted the comments. Shit, I think you might be right. Is Terre Haute is the one where you're at? Is it a federal prison? Is there a federal
Yeah, I
prison?
think there's a federal prison in Terre Haute, Indiana, but I
I just know.
don't deal with federal prisons.
Well, one of your clients might one day.
Yes, unfortunately, that's terrible. We cannot change these cannabis laws fast enough so I can just deal, just business, man. You talk about it and you're like, well, here's how the deal comes in. Here's your cash flows. Here's your, you have your leverage. You have all these types of things. You make payments to your creditors, and then you see how big you can grow. I did just get notice from the ISBA, Illinois State Bar Association, that the majority of the bills that have been filed are, no longer viable until the scheduled adjournment of May 31st. So there's going to be a few more amendments that come in, but whenever there's a bill that's filed, if you're on like the ISBA's committees and it's relevant to your area of the legal practice, they'll shoot it to you, and it's like, here's this bill, talk about it at your next meeting, and we talk about them all the time. But it looks like, first, we aren't going to have a legislature sitting after May 31st in Illinois. And second, the third reading of the cannabis bill for adult use in Illinois is set for May 3rd. There still has not been a bill that is visible to the public. So these amendments and stuff that are coming through now, there's no other bills that looks like are going to be filed in the state right now. And the way that it's currently filed with the Illinois cannabis bill is it just says cannabis bill, seen missing, and then then they say that there's an amendment to it. And when there's an amendment to it, that's actually when they stick in all the stuff that they want to vote. And the reason why they don't want to show it to us is because they don't want too much public input. They're trying to talk to the powers that be right now and make sure that all the Democrats are in order, and that the president of Illinois, Mike Madigan, says this is our bill, we're all happy about it, and then it'll pass. It's just it's kind of a bummer that they don't trust the people more to be able to see it prior to that, so you can read it and start advising people as to what it means.
So how we were talking about with the grass is greener, about the roots of prohibition being pretty much racist.
No, straight racist. I mean, you're talking about coming out of New Orleans and El Paso. I mean, it was Mexicans and jazz musicians. Like, go as far back as you can to like the dawn of jazz. It basically came through New Orleans. That's where Louis Armstrong's from. And then the Mexicans, Pancho Villa, and they're all smoking marijuana. It's straight up racism from like 100 years ago.
So the reason why I bring that up again is because did you see the Trump's administration take on immigrants working in legal states?
No, I did not. What's his take on that now?
State legal marijuana use makes immigrants morally unfit for citizenship, Trump administration warns. You can't be a good American if you smoke weed. I'm just saying.
Oh man, yeah, it's 100 years later and it's still the exact same thing. It's a threat to what it means to be American. This marijuana aspect of it. Evidently, hemp doesn't. Now you can be 100% American and have hemp. But if you have that marijuana, that thing, and you're gonna want jazz music. You're gonna think that you should have things done a different way, and we don't want change. We want everything to be the same. Because when you think about it, even jazz music, it's improvisation. It is making stuff up, and it's great. But boy, it's just too much freedom. We can have enough freedom so long as that it's like law and order freedom.
Yeah, that's a sad world we're in.
It is.
Yeah, I guess my lunchtime's pretty much over though.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm not kidding. Just to catch up, it was a fairly quiet week in marijuana legalization news or cannabis legalization news. Granted, it was Easter, and also there was 420, so it was a good week. I had a good week, and I'm looking forward to next week. I might be real busy next week. I'm going to be in Chicago on April the 30th, talking to the Cannabis Investors Conference about. I'll be on the hemp panel, so I'll be discussing that, and then there's going to be some M&A discussions, and we will then hopefully open the state of Illinois to its inaugural hemp year, and then we'll have an adult use bill, and everybody will be freaking happy.
For your investor conference, is that just for Illinois, or is that just in general for cannabis type?
Well, I think it's being held in Chicago. They do them in large metropolitan areas because that's usually where people gravitate towards. And so they aren't going to do it in the middle of nowhere. So this one's in Chicago, and I think it is to get ahead of the investors that want to get into adult use. But I'm really excited to go and learn more, and I'll report on that next Wednesday, May the 1st.
You should just make sure you give them the advice of doing a simple Google search of whoever they're investing into.
Yes. The simple Google search. Well, I'm assuming Canopy Brands was one of them, but yeah, man, that is something that did that come out this week? Was that the Acreage Holdings Canopy deal? That did you hear about that?
Yeah, no,
it's contingent
like
on marijuana being legalized. That's kind of hilarious because you can't have illegal contracts, and so this merger deal where Acreage is going to sell to I think it's Canopy Brands. I'd have to look. I'm not all that familiar with the Canadian marijuana companies simply because I'm not Canadian. But yeah, it's interesting that we have a merger deal between a fairly large American cannabis company, Acreage Holdings, and a very large Canadian company, and it's contingent on it being a lawful transaction. Marijuana becoming legalized.
I think you will, with your upcoming legalization, you will soon become involved with a lot of Canadians and Israelis. That's a big
no problem with that.
That's a lot of money flowing out here in the Northwest. The backers, the sponsors, I don't know what to fucking call them, the investors.
The freedom fighters. Wait, let's not call them that. That sounds like they're fighting the gorillas in the jungle or something.
Well, they're just the ones that drop in money for state people. That's what they do, and they want their return eventually.
Of course, they want their return. If they're investors, they get a return, or they have an exit strategy. But until next week, man, thanks for joining us on another exciting episode of Cannabis Legalization News. I'll see you in a week.
Peace.